Wow. Hello, Virginia. Are we ready for Hillary? I think that's a yes. I think that's a yes. Y otra vez, estamos listos para Hillary. Estamos listos para Hillary. So a little bit of a vocabulary lesson. If you want to see ready for Hillary, en español es estamos listos para Hillary, ¿verdad? Estamos listos. And the word ready in Spanish is a little bit different than the word ready in English. So if we say in English we're ready for Hillary, it usually means we're waiting, or it's kind of about the time I'm ready to go to the store, something like that. But when I lived in Honduras, the best compliment you could pay to someone was not to say they were inteligente. Nobody ever said that about me. Intelligent. Was not to say that they were guapo or guapa, beautiful. Was not to say that they were amable, friendly. It was to say that they were listo. To say that they were ready. Because in Spanish, in Honduras, what ready means is more than just on time. It means well prepared, bien hecho. It means you're ready to get on the battlefield. You're ready to fight. You're somebody that can be counted on. And so we were ready for Hillary because Hillary's ready for us. Hillary's ready for Virginia. Hillary's ready to be president. Hillary's ready to be our leader. Hillary's ready to make history. And that's why we're ready for Hillary. Secretary Clinton just came from a very tough day yesterday in Springfield, Illinois. I hope you had a chance to hear her talk about very difficult issues of violence and division and fear and anxiety, but also of hope and unification. It was the kind of speech that you frankly don't want to have to give, but tough things happen, and then leaders have to rise to the occasion, and she is a leader. She is a leader. And so she went to Springfield, a city that's really important in our history, and she laid out the right way to lead, which is about bringing us together. And I know she's going to talk about that. What I want to do is just ask you 3 quick questions, and then I'll introduce Secretary Clinton. And I'm asking you questions because this is a college. I mean, this is like a test, all right? The questions are about the presidency, and they're about our nation. So here they are on the economy. On the economy. Do you want a you're fired president or a you're hired president, right? Okay? Now, what is Donald Trump known for? You're fired. In fact, I predict after this whole thing is over, what will be remembered about the failed candidacy of Donald Trump is you're fired, and maybe one other phrase, Trump you, okay? But he's a you're fired guy, outsourcing jobs, stiffing contractors, being against minimum wage, being against equal pay for women, fighting with labor. He's a you're fired guy. And if you want a you're fired president, well, you got a choice. But we're making a different choice. We want a you're hired president. A you're hired president. It starts with fairness, equal pay for women, raising the minimum wage so that you can live on it. Infrastructure and building and creating jobs and growing this nation and doing it in a fair way. Education from pre-K to post-grad, the debt-free college plan. Anybody out here like debt-free college? All right. I told Secretary Clinton that Virginians were pretty smart, so you guys seem to know that, you know, like a you're hired president is better than a you're fired president. Okay? So we'll go to question 2. America's role in the world. Now, this is important to all of us. And the president embodies us in the world. So, do you want a trash talker president or a bridge builder president? That's what's at stake. Donald Trump trash talks women. He trash talks folks with disabilities. He trash talks Latinos. To him, it doesn't matter. To him, it doesn't matter if you are a new immigrant, or you're a worker who's been here for a long time, or a dreamer, or if you're a Latina governor of New Mexico, or if you're a federal judge. If you're a Latino, he's going to trash talk you. He trash talks faiths like Muslims and wants to have a Muslim ban. He trash talks allies and leaders around the world. He trash talks alliances that the U.S. has, like NATO. I'll tell you one that gets me steamed. Donald Trump wants to be commander-in-chief. Donald Trump is a guy who wants to be commander-in-chief, who has said repeatedly, the American military is a disaster. Hold on a second. 1.6 million young men and women volunteer to serve in a time of war now stretching 15 years, and you have the guts to call them a disaster? I mean, I don't want somebody who trash talks our troops and treats them with disrespect and contempt. He even said about John McCain, who worked with Senator Clinton on the Armed Services Committee and has high praise for her as an Armed Services Committee member. Donald Trump said about John McCain that he was no war hero because he was captured and was held as a prisoner of war. So you want the trash talker? What about the bridge builder? What about the bridge builder? What about the bridge builder who served on the Armed Services Committee and worked to make us strong and worked to respect troops and worked to build up and support military families and worked to build alliances, and our nation's better as a result? What about the bridge builder who was our diplomat in chief when President Obama came in and President Obama said, I'm going to restore diplomacy? Isn't it good to have a president who is willing to restore diplomacy again? And when he said, I'm going to restore diplomacy after it was let atrophy for 8 years, and he said, I have to pick the one person who can go into any room in the world and be a face of American leadership in the world as we restore diplomacy, and he asked Senator Hillary Clinton to be Secretary of State. So, I think we all know that when it comes to our leadership in the world, trash talking ain't enough. We need a bridge builder, and we've got a bridge builder in Hillary Clinton. Last question. Last question. Character. Do you want a me first president or a kids and families first president? Now, me first? I mean, Donald Trump. Again, Trump you, right? Sets up a bogus college named after capital H himself, takes a lot of people's hard-earned money, making promises to them, and they end up with something that's less than the paper it's written on, and for him, that's a success. Well, that's great. But what about all the people that got hurt along the way? He doesn't care about that. Me first. Every other presidential candidate for decades has given their tax returns so the American public can know something about them. No, but Donald Trump is different. He's not releasing his tax returns, and he even said why last night. He got asked on an interview, and the reason is, well, it could politically hurt me. You think? You think? When you see that this guy doesn't want to pay the taxes to support all the things like Northern Virginia community colleges or the troops that he trashes, he doesn't want to pay the taxes to support them. When you see that he doesn't have a record of supporting charities, he promises that he does, but he stiffs them. That's why he doesn't reduce it. That's a me first thing. And then some of you saw on TV a couple weeks ago when the Brexit vote passed and the English pound was taking a beating, and he happened to be in the United Kingdom. He said, hey, great, if the pound gets hit, more people will come to my golf course. Me first. I don't want a me first president. I want a kids and families first president. Secretary Clinton, and I have to admit to some partiality here because I like in you what I like about my wife, Ann, who's the Secretary of Education in Virginia. When Secretary Clinton was growing up in Illinois and she got exposed to a Methodist youth group and exposed to the big challenges outside in the big outside world, like we all do when we're young, you can make a decision about whether you make those problems your own or whether you try to avoid them. And she decided at a young age, I want to make those challenges my own. And as a lawyer, working with the Children's Legal Defense Fund, First Lady of Arkansas, doing so much great stuff as Secretary of State, making the empowerment of women and children a fundamental pillar of American foreign policy in every nation in the world. But also, you've seen probably the ads that talk about her role as First Lady and making sure that 8 million kids in this country have health insurance today, S-chip. It's an amazing accomplishment. The problem with those ads is that the ads are too short. It only tells half the story. It tells getting over the finish line and getting the job done, and 8 million kids have health insurance. But remember this, when you ask yourself about the character of somebody who should be a leader. She was the leader in a way ahead of its time effort as First Lady to try to get comprehensive health insurance done. And she happened to have the fate of working with a pretty tough Congress that didn't want to do it. Now that sounds kind of familiar. I don't know. Maybe. And so they worked so hard to do that, and they couldn't get it over the finish line with the comprehensive health care that they wanted to do. But did this leader say, okay, well, sorry, let's go on to the next issue? Did she say, well, I like kids and families, and there's all these uninsured kids, but I guess we can't do anything? No. They went back, and they dusted off, and they'd taken a licking, but they said, we're not going to give up because maybe we can't get everything, but maybe we can make sure that every young kid in this country will have health insurance, and when their parents go to sleep at night, they'll at least go to sleep with the peace of mind knowing that if something happens to their children, there's going to be medical care for them. That's the kind of leader. That's the kind of character. And that's why we want her as president. And now I'm going to introduce her. Look, this is a tough time. This is a time of a lot of anxiety, and Secretary Clinton spoke to that yesterday in Springfield. She's been speaking about it during her whole career. And here's the danger in a time of anxiety, and it's a danger that we're seeing. And we've seen it a lot in Virginia politics. Times of anxiety, people are afraid, people worry about the state of the world. Man, one political strategy, and Donald Trump is just pulling this playbook, dusting it off, and he's doing it, is try to divide people against one another, pit people against one another, play on people's fears. And look, we know that too well in Virginia. There's been many decades of politics like that in our state, and frankly, pretty much all over this country. And it can work at times if we're not diligent. But that's not what leaders do. What leaders do when times are tough, and there's some fraying, and there's some challenges, and there's some means of communication that have been cut off, and some channels that aren't being used, and some dialogue that needs to happen. What leaders do is they don't sugarcoat or whitewash the challenges, but they just walk right out among them, walk right out into the challenges and embrace them and bring people together. That's what the best leaders have done in this country since we started. And that's what we need right now. And that's why I'm so glad to present to you our great friend and the next President of the United States, Hillary Clinton.
Thank you.